Proud supporters of Africa this week. Engine. With us, you are number one.
New corporate bond launches are expected to boost the primary market by around 192 billion naira this year. The government has issued tax waivers for investors and pension fund guideline revisions to increase the proportion of institutional investments in these corporate papers. Wale Famurewa spoke to Adetole Odukoya, Vice President of Dunlorraine Merrifield, about the significance of bonds on the health of corporate Nigeria.
It's not surprising. If you go back to the FGN bonds you mentioned earlier, you recall in 2003 at the issuance of the first FGN 3-year bond of just about 30 billion. Today we're talking about FGN issuing 20-year paper at in hundreds of billions. So it's not so as slow as you think. I mean, going back to December 2009, going back to the GT bond, you recall that last year in 2010, you actually had about 3 major corporates who came to the market to raise capital through the debt capital markets. You have UBA, you have UPDC, you have flour mills, and at the tail end of the year, in December precisely, Chelarams PLC also raised some money, and including flour mills. So it's not as slow as you think, and you recall that also last year, all the issues last year actually occurred in the second half of the year. And I can tell you, at least from my position, that you would probably see the closure of 1 or 2 corporate bonds this month in June, that is. And also the outlook for the market is equally optimistic for the rest of the year.
Yeah, but the thing is, relative to the potential size of this market, in fact, maybe we should even get to that. How big can this market realistically be for these corporate bonds issues? We'll have to look at the quality of the issuers here. You did mention GT Bank issuing a bond, and really, we really have to count on one hand or so how many big issues we've seen on the corporate bonds. Yes, we've seen some smaller ones, but realistically, how big can this market be?
Well, rightly so. If you look at it from the global context, ideally, the ratio of equity market to debt market, ideally we should be about 10 to 1. That's equity being 1 and debt being 1. So that tells you the potential that lies in the market. However, if you take it away from the global perspective and come to our domestic scene, like you rightly mentioned, the quality of the issuers, I reckon we have the potential to match debt to equity about 5 times, i.e. you have market capitalization of equities doing about 6-7 trillion. Now that means you can do that 5 times over. And all you need is just for investors to be more confident in the ability of issuers in the market. I mean, if you look at the recently, trustees have been coming to the market talking about coupon payments. GT Bond has been paying its coupons, and all the other issues have been paying. Once the market settles and confidence is built in the market, you actually have investors who actually be knocking on your door asking for corporate bonds. We've seen examples in other markets, and we believe Nigeria has all that potential also. Addressing the issue of the quality of the issuers, I think that can be addressed with the rating. The fact that these bonds are being rated actually addresses that fact. Either it's investment grade or non-investment grade. And of course, the issuer will pay for that through the coupons on those bonds. So I think the Nigerian market actually has huge potential for growth beyond what bond can really think.
Roads are the arteries of business in Africa, and traffic jams deter investors. Kenya is trying to do something about this with a new network of superhighways in the hope of attracting new investment.
This is one of the biggest intersections in Kenya. It runs along Uhuru Highway with an overpass connecting the CBD with the western suburbs. It is part of a 8.5 billion Kenya shilling mega road construction project co-funded by the Chinese government, which is paying 85%. The Kenyan government is meeting the remainder with a loan from the African Development Bank.
If you look at the port of Mombasa, 96% of the cargo out of that port is carried by the roads. It comes into the country, it goes to Rwanda, Burundi, and therefore it's a major contributor to the economy. We may not have the figures, but look at that trade being carried. Not to talk of the reverse cargo which is coming into Mombasa as well. So the road network currently plays a major role in movement of economic goods of this country.
Not only will improved road infrastructure cut the number of hours spent on the road, but it has a potential to attract investment and increase economic activities in and around major cities.
Yeah, I think the opening up of more roads will increase the efficiency which Kenyans can conduct business. And I think that in turn will lead to the country's economic growth increasing. And I think that economic growth will see us as a car industry or motor industry most definitely benefit from that. I think the direct impact on Kenyans is going to be just, I'll share a practical example with you. Some of our customers are approximately, say, 10 kilometers away. At the moment, it takes one of my salesmen an hour to get there. He has the meeting, and then it takes him an hour to get back. So the poor guy can only have kind of 2 meetings in a day. So in a large way, that really hampers our business. So seeing that flow of traffic increase, it's going to mean that we can get to more customers, and that in turn is going to help the economy.
For a foreigner to be able to come to Kenya or to any other country for that matter, the first thing you'd look at is the road infrastructure. Is he able to come here and do his manufacturing or any other business and be able to take it to the nearest destination for it to be transported? Like, for example, is he able to access the airport? Is he able to access the seaport or a railway line? So it is very important for him that the road network is in very good condition.
It is estimated that Kenya could draw billions of shillings in investment through this road revamp. This will help towards the country's target of double digits growth by 2030.
With high quality road infrastructure, you have the promise of greater interaction between markets. You have the promise of reducing vehicle operating costs, and you have the promise of farmers getting improved farm gate prices for their farm products, and higher cost effectiveness in terms of transporting products and services to the final users. Because whenever we have poor road network, then suppliers have to transfer the cost to the final consumers. So final consumers suffer in the long run.
With increasing fuel and commodity prices, the expansion of roads will reduce vehicle operating costs and save road users millions in fuel costs and time.
The congestion that we have seen on the Kenyan roads in the recent years has had a negative impact on the country's GDP, because it's very difficult to conduct business when you're not able to travel around and get to your customers or get to your suppliers. So the construction of the ring roads and the various different projects that we're seeing going on, I think is going to have an incredibly positive impact, one on the motor industry, but also two on the Kenya country as a whole. And I think the main concern for us is with regards to the traffic safety, because as soon as the roads get bigger and they get wider and they get smoother, we're also going to see the speeds on the road increase. So one concern for us is to ensure that the road traffic safety is also enhanced.
Our major concern currently would be to decongest the roads, especially within Nairobi. And we have a plan to do a southern bypass, which will decongest the Mombasa road through the city. Because if it's going to be a hub, one thing, airport into the city should be a matter of 10-15 minutes. Currently, it varies from 10 to 15 at night, but at peak traffic, it could be 2 hours. So we are going to work on the road from the airport into the city so that people who want to come in, do their business and get out, have that free access.
Although road infrastructure investment is not all rosy, with issues such as land acquisitions, involuntary resettlement, and environmental impact remaining a stumbling block, there are hopes it can help the country on the road to prosperity. CNBC Africa, Nairobi.
The International Marketing Council of South Africa can only reach its goals if all stakeholders, such as business, government and civil society, collaborate in realizing the positioning of South Africa as a globally competitive nation. The IMC CEO, Miller Matola, detailed their new program of action.
The issue of the name change is something that was raised in a meeting by between the council as well as the president last week, and the idea there is that the International Marketing Council name tended to focus on our international efforts only. Whereas in 2008, we went through a review process, which actually indicated that we need to also focus on mobilizing South Africans and making them brand ambassadors, ensuring that they can be confident spokespersons of the country, but can also talk the country up, hence the name change.
All right, now these stakeholder summits that began in Johannesburg today, what's that all about? Because essentially what you're trying to do is get a range of South Africans, policymakers, business, civil society, to start to really be part of this new impetus for a new kind of message.
Yeah. Well, in order to ensure a consistent and coherent message in our marketing efforts internationally, we need all the stakeholders to work together. So we need business, we need government, as well as the civil society to work together. And within that is obviously the media as well. So it is imperative that we consult with them, we talk to them. Today's event was really about sharing our plans with them and saying this is what we are doing, and also getting feedback from stakeholders, but more importantly, exhorting them to really become brand ambassadors and join in the effort to promote and profile South Africa.
One of the issues that came up is whether or not this kind of energy needs to be stimulated through a series of workshops, or whether it's the day-to-day interactions that all South Africans have. And that's a challenge, because how do we gauge and measure whether all South Africans are singing from the same hymn sheet?
Well, essentially it shouldn't be, event-driven, workshop-driven, for instance, but it should be something that we live throughout our everyday lives. It should be something that is embedded in our activities, whether we are a business or whether we are civil society. And our intent is obviously to get to the point where South Africans can actually live those values of the brand and can actually demonstrate that they have a very strong affinity to this country and therefore can be able to talk very positively about it.
Okay, talk us through those values.
Well, some of these values go to issues such as Ubuntu, which is one of those central values, and you can find it across the rest of Africa. And it's much more than just the issue of humaneness. It's really a strong recognition of that fact that your humanity is interlinked with mine, and therefore it goes just beyond a very narrow definition. We also have sustainability, because we believe that South Africa has demonstrated very strongly that it is a sustainable democracy amongst other things, but also sustainability in terms of investing in its future. If you look at the infrastructure investments we are making, for an example, the other value that we look at is possibility. As I say, South Africans see no cul-de-sacs. For South Africans, everything is possible. So if you look at a few things, if you ask people a few years ago where South Africa would be, I don't think many would actually imagine that we would be where we are.
Do you think that, I think South Africans are generally proud of the country and the journey we've traveled post-apartheid, but do you think South Africans quantify or really have calibrated those gains in terms of how they see themselves? And I'm talking here about, if you look at Americans and how patriotic they are, where people have flags outside their homes, where people before sporting events sing national anthems and know the words of the national anthem. Do you think South Africans are that way inclined?
I think we are growing in that direction, but we still have a lot of work to do, where such impulses become a natural thing and are not driven really by either an event or an external reality. I think our ambition and vision is to get to a point where patriotic pride and a sense of unity and belonging is core to what all South Africans are about. And this goes a long way in terms of, as someone said earlier today, you've got to catch them younger. So start with the young people and actually educate them to have a sense of pride in this country and realize that the strides that have been made in this country